The cost of IT in business can be staggering. From hardware and software expenses to services like internet and phone, you don't need to spend a fortune on IT to succeed. If your organization spends more than $500 monthly on any service, or you're considering signing a long-term contract, IT Enabled can help you manage your technology and minimize your costs. Contact us today to schedule a free consultation. IT Enabled, we're here to help.
Hi, I'm Tara Watson-Watkins, President and CEO of the Lufkin, Angelina County Chamber of Commerce. Welcome to the Connect podcast, connecting business to the community. I'm here today with my co-host, Blake Pollino with BP Media Group.
So this week we have Dianne Amerine of the Small Business Development Center back on the podcast. Probably our most referenced resource here in East Texas. We love talking about them. We love talking to them. So we have her back on the podcast just to remind everybody how great this resource is and talk about some of the new things that they're doing. So let's talk about that now.
We're thrilled to have back on for the second time. It's been several years, but Dianne Amerine, who is the Executive Director of the Small Business Development Center. Welcome, Dianne. Glad to have you back.
Thank you.
Yeah, so a lot's happened since we've had you. I think we had you right after you started.
Right.
You had been there a while, but you were the new executive director. So
right.
we've been through COVID. We've helped a lot of businesses, and now here you are.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So for those that are not familiar with you, why don't you give a little bit of your background history, and then we'll talk about the Small Business Development Center and what all you do.
Okay. Well, I was born here in Lufkin and lived here until I started school. And then we moved away, and I lived around East Texas, though, that whole time. And my family is all from here. And went to school at SFA. And when my husband graduated, we moved to Houston for a number of years and started our family there and thought, this is not what we want. We love East Texas. We want to come back. So we came back here to be near family and started some businesses, and we had a CPA practice here for about 25 years, along with some other things, lots of different small businesses, retail and real estate development among them. And after my family, I worked in our family businesses almost exclusively that whole time. And after my children got big, I went to work for other people and retired from the Texas Department of Criminal Justice over in Huntsville as a budget analyst, and then did not like retirement. So I started working part-time as a business advisor for Angelina College SBDC, and I love that because small business is my passion. Mm-hmm. Economic development is my passion. It's so necessary for our area and our region, and there are people that need help.
That's right.
And so at the SBDC, we help people start and grow and expand their businesses and all the way through the life cycle. So it's not work for me. It's something I greatly enjoy. And when Larry Kane retired as our director, it was right in the middle of COVID, and so everything was unsure at that time. And so I became the director then, and really all of our staff retired or moved away. COVID just did that to people. And but we're all staffed up now. We have a full staff going strong, and just enjoying helping the small business owners in our area.
That's great. So for those that are not familiar with the SBDC, it's housed actually on the Angelina College campus.
It is. We're in the Community Services Building. Anybody familiar with the campus, of course, knows where Temple Theater is. And we're just across the way with the pretty rounded auditorium. Mm-hmm. It's an interesting building. And so we're right there in the Community Services Building.
One of the best views on campus if you've never been in there. It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful room.
It is.
Yeah, it's if you aren't super familiar with this organization, you may not have listened to this podcast very long because you're probably one of our most quoted resources that we tell people about.
We talk about you.
We do
constantly.
all the time, all the time. So for people who aren't super familiar with exactly what the services are, how does the process work? So like what do you actually do for businesses?
Okay, well we operate in a lot of different areas. Typically, our clients come as referrals from chambers or from lenders, although we do get clients from other sources as well, economic development, anyone who's dealing with a person who is either has a small business or wants to start one. So typically when people come to us, I would say almost everybody is in need of a business plan, because what do we all hate? Business plans and budgets. I mean, that's just not the fun part of work, right? But so we have some really good resources to do good research on what's going on in different industries, both nationally, regionally, and somewhat locally. And that's very helpful for people as they're planning their business. And, a business plan is a living, growing thing. Just like if you plan a trip, you may know the way to go one place, but not necessarily to go somewhere else. So it's always in flux, because our businesses are always changing and evolving based on our customer need, our economic climate, and our own personal lives. And so really, once you're a client of the SBDC, we're pretty much in there as long as you want us to be. You don't have to talk to us all the time, but as things come up, or you see a need to change or modify your business plan, or you need some more research, or things have just grown and expanded, you need more funding. All lenders want a good current business plan. We help you get that together in the documents. What we don't do is we don't influence loans, and we don't offer loans or grants. That's the SBA, not the SBDC. But we know what they want, and we know what our local commercial lenders want, and we help our clients get the documents together that they need for funding. Funding is always a major thing. We offer classes on campus in our little, AC offers lots of different classes. We offer more specialized things, so we're sensitive to our client needs. People want to know about Canva. They want to know about social media. They want to know about things like that. And if clients request, we will put a class together. Sometimes we just have offerings that we put out there. But I think one of the very best things that came out of COVID for SBDC is we have access to the SBDC webinars that were produced and are still currently being produced as a result of COVID, where people can just, get the link sent to your email. It's just like picking out a Netflix. They're free, and you can look at any subject that you want. If you need a refresher on QuickBooks, or if you want to look at a business plan webinar before you actually go talk to somebody, people have all different approaches on how they want to be educated. So those are just a few, but there are many others. If you want to have a food truck that gets really specific on different types of businesses, if you're interested in retail, if you have HR questions, those are all experts that have developed those, and they're short. People can watch them when they want to, so it makes it nice. So we train, we go through the whole business cycle for people. If they want to start, we go through the startup. What do you do business in Texas? What kind of permits do you need? What are some of the taxing regulations? We do not give accounting advice or legal advice, even if we're a certified accountant or a lawyer. That is not in our scope. We will certainly suggest that you seek those professionals out. But basically, ours is more of an overview, more of a guidance, I think. Sometimes we refer to ourselves as, instead of advisors or counselors, we call ourselves, it's part coach, part counseling. It just depends on the client need. Everybody's unique. Every business is unique.
Yeah. It's so interesting, because that's a lot of time as a small business owner, and when the rubber really hits the road is when you start to talk about funding. So when you're going to get a loan, or you're looking to expand or acquire funding of any kind, if you've been freewheeling it up until that point, that's when you really have to get your stuff together. And do you see a lot of that when it comes to that?
I agree.
Yeah.
And typically that's what happens, because, another thing we go into is the personality of an entrepreneur, which it's a whole nother podcast.
That's a whole nother
podcast.
Yes.
And so what about us? That's part of what? The American dream.
Sure.
How did we all get here? We came here for what? The American dream, or our families did at some time, or most families did. And so that adventuresome spirit is there. And then I will say, in my opinion, as East Texans, we have the can-do spirit. So, I'll just do it. And then we do until we don't.
You can't anymore.
And then we reach out. But
Yeah.
that's okay. You know, I'm telling you, that is, in my opinion, a lot of why many of our businesses were successful from COVID.
Yeah.
Is because that's one thing about this particular region of the country. People, they have a can-do spirit. They'll back up and find a way.
Before I started working at the chamber, I had heard of the SBDC, but I thought it was just a local organization, that it was something here. I didn't realize the magnitude of America's SBDC and that it is a national program. And how are you funded through all of this?
Well, that's an interesting question, because it is much bigger than people really realize.
Right.
The SBA funding comes down to the SBDC. It's an arm of SBA, and that money, our particular grant that we operate under, comes through the University of Houston. And then the University of Houston has agreements with different areas, because that's the best way to reach people, is one-on-one and in close proximity to your community. So Angelina College has a contract. Angelina College is the subrecipient of that big overreaching grant. And so they're considered the host, because, they provide a building for us, and we're employed through Angelina College. We function with the college and support the college mission, and that's how that works.
It's much bigger than I think a lot of people actually realize.
Yeah.
Yes, in our region, in the Gulf Coast region, there are, I believe, 16 centers, with Angelina being the farthest north. Goes all the way down to Lake Jackson, over to Fort Bend, Katy, Woodlands, Sam Houston. It's the Gulf Coast network, all of Baytown, Galveston, all that whole big section. And in Texas, there are 5 regions. Most states only have 1, but hey, we're Texas, so we have 5 because we're bigger. But we have a national ASBDC convention every year, and we get a lot of professional development and insight and guidance through the ASBDC. It is massive, and they have their hands on the pulse of small business nationwide.
That's great.
Yeah.
So if somebody wants to come and get some help from you, how much does it cost?
All right. Well, our services are no cost. So everybody says, well, nothing is free, and it's not. It's taxpayer money. It comes down through the SBA, and we try to be good stewards of those resources. We have a very lean budget, and I think we do a really good job of stretching it. So it's, but there's no cost to the client. I tell people the cost is, we ask you to answer our surveys, because that's how they grade us, is on our achievements. And when we ask, if we've been impactful, if our services have been impactful, well, then we need a response on that to get continued funding.
That's great.
That's great.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the greatest. You talk about it being tax dollar funded. And I know there's a lot of things that are tax dollar funded that don't feel like they have a great return on investment, but this does. If you're starting new businesses within Texas that are going to in turn create tax revenue and put back into the system, I think that's a great way to reinvest those dollars.
I wish I had brought that number with me. I don't like to quote numbers that are not right in front of me, because I don't want to get them wrong. But there is a really good return on investment.
Absolutely.
For that.
Yeah. So a lot of times when people think about this, you're thinking about, I think a lot of people assume it's starting a business, right? I want to start X business, whatever it is, and go get help. But you can also help expand existing businesses. Is that a part of it as well?
Yes, that is a part of it. And we also help people like who are selling or purchasing from another business. Those are very complex situations typically. I know one client recently, we've worked with them for, this is awful, but 2 years to get an SBA loan. But it was a very complicated transaction. And quite honestly, I was very impressed that the buyer, the seller, the SBA, the two banks involved really stuck through it, because it just required a lot of pieces. It was an older business and therefore more involved, But that would be the only thing I would say is sometimes SBA loans take a while. The bigger the loan, typically the longer it takes. I look at our job is to get everything together that the lender needs. I tell clients whenever we do any kind of loan packaging or helping them get their documents, and in writing the business plan, it's my goal to answer all the questions that the banker would have, or the lender, SBA. I want them to look at it and go, gee, what could we ask? So what does that mean? Well, you just have to drill down. You just have to keep drilling down. And sometimes they're big and complicated, like the one that was a 2-year process, and sometimes they're 90 days. The more prepared we are and the simpler it is. I will tell you, for SBA lending right now, SBA loans are on sale this year. They are. Not so much with the interest rate, but with the fees. The fees have been waived, and that's considerable. Yeah, that's a real plus. Yeah.
So if someone wants to become a client, how do they contact you?
Well, if you call our office, they're on campus, or if you go online and just Google Angelina College SBDC, it'll take you to a link that you can register online. Our process has changed since COVID. All clients are registered online, or you can just call our office or come in over at, we won't see you on the day you come in, but we will guide you through the process. But reach out to Angelina College, the SBDC, or to me or anyone on our staff, and we'll help you.
Well, we appreciate all that you do for our area. And like Blake said, we literally talk about the SBDC
all the time.
I don't know. It's all the time. In fact, we've joked and said they should be a sponsor. We talk about them so much.
I know. Well, I appreciate
We're always
that.
bragging on what you do and what you do for the community.
Thank you. Yeah. And I will say that one of the things that we always advise our clients as well is the importance of joining the chamber.
Yeah, thank you. It's a great partnership.
It is a great partnership, and it's so valuable to the business owners.
Yeah. We try.
Yeah, you do a good job.
So thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. We always love to talk about great resources. And Tara and I were talking about this today. I mean, some of the things that we've been able to learn about in a front row seat with this podcast, it's unbelievable. So a lot of times we are trumpeting what are really, really good resources. And this is one of them. So if you're a small business owner, if you want to be a small business owner, definitely go check this out, because it's amazing what it can do for you. And you'd be surprised at what you don't know. And they do. So it's a great resource for that. So thank you so much for your time. Appreciate having you on the podcast again. And thank you so much for listening to the podcast again this week. We truly appreciate your support. If you'll do us a favor and share this podcast with someone that you know, wherever you're listening, you can click the share button. You can send it via text, social media, wherever, and just let somebody else know about this podcast if you think they'll find these type of stories that we tell every week interesting to them as well. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.